Palmer Show. You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Looking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Well, it's almost Hunt Palmer. It's the Hunt Palmer Show. Taylor Sharp here with you, filling in for Mr. Hunt Palmer. Kind of a full circle moment here today on the Hunt Palmer Show. A year and a half ago, I had to leave Hunt Show early to close on my very first house. Hunt's moving. Today, I believe Hunt is closing on his house about the 2 o'clock hour. So we are in today. We are hanging out with you for the next 2 hours or so. Excited to be here. We're going to hit on a ton. We're going to do LSU baseball. Bill Bender from the Sporting News is going to join us, talk a little college basketball, some bracketology as March Madness inches closer and closer. We're obviously going to recap LSU basketball and the SEC slate as a whole. Then in hour number 2, we'll talk a little LSU spring football. After that, we're going to be joined by Matthew Paris. He's going to talk some Saints with us. You know, the draft coming up, the offseason, free agency, all that jazz. Continue our NFL talk into that next segment. And then we're going to close out the show like we do every single day with Take It or Leave It. I want to go around the room here before we get started. Mr. Beck, how was your weekend?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Not bad. Not bad.
What'd we do?
My wife, one of my wife's friends from out of town, she works with her. She came in and we picked her up from the airport, and then Saturday, not a whole lot, but Sunday had a good day with some family, and just overall pretty easy going weekend. Not anything too crazy though.
Casey?
Going good. Had a weekend full of moving stuff from the house.
Oh, so you're
Heavy
moving
lifting.
too?
Yeah, I am also moving.
Man, we got a couple party animals back there. All right, look, let's get started. Let's jump right into things. We're going to start where I'm sure everyone wants to start today, and that's LSU baseball. They had a 4-game series starting on Thursday, closing it out yesterday. They go 3-1 on the weekend, and I know what you're thinking, dang it, the perfect season's over. Unfortunately, it's true, but obviously you're going to lose some games in baseball. Thursday, to give you a little bit of a recap, they beat NIU 10-2. Then they lose Friday 5-2 to who else but the Stony Brook Seawolves. They come back against NIU on Saturday. They get a 5-2 victory. Then an 18-10 revenge victory against Stony Brook that seemed like it lasted about 5 hours. Really good performance from LSU this weekend. Again, I know that they lost that Friday game, and it was Thatcher Hurd on the mound once again. We'll get into him. There was a lot to like. Let's go through our positives and negatives of the weekend. And I'm a positive guy. We can start with the pros. I thought Gage Jump looked really good in his first start. He got that Thursday start. You know, he only went 2 1/3 innings because his pitch count in that opening inning was 23 pitches. And Jay said he's going to be on 50 to 55 pitch count. I think he threw like 51. So he was right there. But again, in 2 1/3, he struck out 4. He had control of multiple pitches. I really liked what I saw from him. Loved Luke Holman on Saturday. I thought that Luke Holman once again looked like he was the best starter on this team. He for sure has a weekend spot. I know that Jay likes to tamper with the lineups a little bit. I think we can go ahead, lock that one down, shut it down. He has a weekend spot. I would prefer it be on Saturday. We'll get into that a little bit later. I also thought Javen Coleman was really, really good. This is his second solid outing in a row. Again, he doesn't have overpowering stuff, but he can reach a 92, 93 from the left-hand side. He's got control. He had that really bad injury 2 years ago. He came back last year, just never seemed quite the same as he was before that injury. He looks like a full go. He looks good to go, maybe even better than he was before that injury back when he was a freshman. Again, second solid outing in a row for Javen Coleman. I also love the depth on this team. It's incredible. I mean, look, I obviously do OTB every morning. We talk about it all the time. Really, your two main spots that you still have competition at, it's second base and right field. You get about 5 guys battling for those 2 spots, and it's a hard decision to make, but it's a good decision, or it's good to have a tough decision to make. In the outfield, you got Josh Pearson, Jake Brown, Ethan Fry. And then at second, it's been a combination of Pearson and Milam. And then here comes Stephen Milam. My biggest positive of the entire weekend. I think he's locked down a starting spot. Don't care where it is. He has to be in the lineup, whether it's batting or defensively. I mean, the guy's batting .409 right now after your first 8 games of the season, and he almost looks like he's your best defender in the infield as well. You started him at second base. Then on Saturday, Michael Braswell, he's the one that gets the break. Every game this week and last weekend, Jay's given one of those everyday starters, if you will, a break. It was Michael Braswell on Saturday. They moved Stephen Milam to shortstop. He didn't look out of place at all. I mean, he looked really good. Every bit as good as Braswell defensively, in my opinion, which is saying a lot because he's looked like a stud early on. Also, as far as the Thursday game goes, we started this series off with a bang. We know Josh Pearson can make it happen. Michael Braswell's great in the field. Neither of those guys were hitting. They were both batting under 170. And then in the Thursday game, what happens? Josh Pearson, 2 home runs. Michael Braswell has a home run, almost another. And then yesterday, Braswell gets a 3 RBI triple to really bust that game open. That's when it got to be 8-0. That really blew the game wide open. So your 2 defenders that you were like, hey, if their hitting can come around, it ultimately came around this weekend. I think any combination of those 3, Braswell, Pearson, Milam, you got a wealth of riches right now, if you will. Last positive for me, it's going to be the catcher position. You have 3 big-time catchers. Doesn't really matter who you put back there. You always know that you have good catchers when you have to look and be like, okay, who's back there? Because there's not an obvious drop-off. We know Alex Milazzo, probably the best defensive catcher on the staff, but Brady Neal's looked really good behind the dish. I am of the opinion that if Brady Neal can equal what Alex Milazzo does defensively, he should be your everyday starting catcher. I think he's the best combination of offense and defense because Hayden Travinski is going to be in that lineup regardless. He's going to be your DH if he ain't DH and he's catching. You're not taking that bat out of the lineup. So he's an everyday player, if you will. The bigger battle is between Alex Milazzo and Brady Neal. I would love for Brady Neal to grab hold of that spot and then late in games as a defensive replacement, if you needed it, that's where Alex Milazzo comes in. However, right now, the way Milazzo's hitting the ball, I'm okay with either one of them out there. I think you cannot go wrong at the catcher position. It's such a rarity and it's such a luxury to have in college baseball because the catcher position's hard. I mean, a lot of teams struggle with their starters. You got 3 guys who all stuck around on this program, who all want to be a part of LSU, that are playing really good baseball, batting and behind the dish. Love what I've seen from the catcher position. Okay, so we do all that. Now we do have some negatives. Nothing major, but there are some negatives. Batting is still a little inconsistent. Now, that'll come with time. We saw this last year because I see a lot of people on social media saying, you can't just expect the bats to come around. That's not how it works. We did this exact same thing last year. At the beginning of last season, would you have said, hey, this team's going to be electric, they're going to bomb home runs all over the place, they're going to go to Omaha, and they're going to win the College World Series? Probably not. They struggled a little bit out of the gate last year. Now, that team had a lot more power in its lineup, but this team hits for average. Jared Jones is crushing the ball. We'll get to him in just a minute. As far as the pitching goes, I love the bullpen. I talked about it. You know, the starters, whether it's Gage Jump, Javen Coleman, Luke Holman, but the bullpen has been outstanding. Really outside of a few guys. Cam Johnson, for me, is the biggest concern. We kind of knew this coming into the season, though, right? I mean, all the scrimmages that you got to go watch, the ones that were open to the public, the reports from Jay Johnson is this guy might have the best stuff on the staff. He's just really inconsistent. He has major control issues right now. You saw it a little bit yesterday. He goes in there, and when it's working, he gets back-to-back strikeouts, but then what happens? You get back-to-back walks, things start to unravel. He doesn't even get out of the inning. You got to pull him. That's kind of what we saw in his first appearance of the year as well. A lot of good, a lot of bad. He's going to have to work on that, and that's fine. He'll have time to work on that. I don't think you're going to have to rely on him a ton this season. I could be wrong, but this is going to be a developmental season for a guy like Cam Johnson. The biggest concern for me, though, it's Thatcher Hurt. Through 2 starts, he's failed to get out of the 5th inning. And this is a guy that your Friday starter, if you will. I know that this past week he was in the number 2 spot, but his stuff is there. I mean, he has swing and miss stuff. He went 4 1/3 this past weekend. He had 8 strikeouts and 4 1/3. Opening game of the year, he went 2 1/3, still had 4 strikeouts. So it's swing and a miss stuff. It's just one game he started getting the walks, right? He started having the control issue. That wasn't the issue on Friday. The issue on Friday was Stony Brook was just hitting it. Now, sometimes that's going to happen, but it's 2 bad outings in a row for Thatcher Hurd. Again, I think he'll work out of it because a lot like the batting, we saw this from Thatcher Hurd a year ago. He started out really slow and then became one of your best pitchers and was instrumental in winning the national championship in Omaha. I mean, you guys saw it in the must-win game against the Florida Gators. He was outstanding. I think he'll figure it out. I want him to figure it out on Sundays. I don't want him to figure it out on Fridays right now. You can work through it. You can go a bullpen game on Saturday and Sunday. You do a bullpen game on Friday, you don't know how many arms you're going to have the next 2 games. So I still want to keep him in that starting lineup because I think he's good enough. I think he's one of your 3 best starting pitchers on the staff. But until he figures things out, I would like to see him in that Sunday role, if you will, that 3rd, that 4th starter, just until he builds it back up. You can always make the switch. I mean, right now, look, I know it's a little bit early on. I like Gage Jump as that number 1 starter. He's going to be on a pitch count. I get it. That's fine. Can he get you through 5 innings, 6 innings? I think he's got the best starting stuff on the staff. Because if you keep Luke Holman on Saturday, Luke Holman's probably better than any Saturday starter in the SEC. He might struggle on Fridays, though. You got to have a dominant pitcher on Friday. As great as Luke Holman's been, I don't know if he's that dominant pitcher. He's certainly been your most consistent. I think he has it in him. Can it be maintained? At Alabama last year, he had a lot of highs. He had some lows as well. I like Gage Jump, then Luke Holman, then Thatcher Hurd until he figures it out. We'll see what happens, though. And look, as far as the standings go in SEC play, I understand we haven't started SEC play yet, but don't get discouraged by that loss to Stony Brook. There's only 3 SEC teams that are still undefeated. Alabama actually has the best overall record. They're 8-0. Texas A&M 7-0. And then in the East, it's Georgia at 7-0. Florida was picked to finish to win the East. They're 5-1 right now. Arkansas, who was picked to finish the West, 5-2. So while the SEC is still a dominant baseball conference, they've had some bumps along the way early on. LSU is not the only team that's dealing with this, and I trust Jay Johnson more than any coach in the country to get this figured out. Really solid weekend of baseball. Really excited to play Texas this upcoming weekend. Then you got ULL. You, of course, have your midweek game against Rice. I think this is the tip of the iceberg. We're going to see what this team's made of this weekend. I'm excited to get this one started. All right, that's going to do it for our open segment. We're going to go a little bit short in the opening segment because we're going to come back. We're going to talk some bracketology. March Madness about to get underway. Bill Bender of the Sporting News. He's going to join us to talk about that when we come back right here on the Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets, onebathandclosets.com is that website. David Duvall and his team, been in the game 30 years, redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Just check out the website, onebathandclosets.com. Look at some of the pictures of their great work, whether it's in the bathroom or in the closet. Some of these are full-scale bathroom renovations, and David Duvall and One Bath and Closets handle them from start to finish. You make one phone call, he handles the entire thing. Maybe it's something smaller than that. It's a tub-to-shower conversion, something like that, where you don't use the tub. You pull it out, you put it in a glass walk-in shower that's gorgeous, 1, and 2, functions like you need it to, as opposed to that tub, which you don't ever use. And on the closet side, just declutter. Use that space a little bit more efficiently. Customize a closet to your exact needs. If you need help with financing, David Duvall and his team can do that at One Bath and Closets. Check out that website, onebathandclosets.com.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
He's here. Anyone want a Coors Light?
Oh, shoot, I forgot to play the song. I a guy who can fix this.
It was a humid day, barefoot children play, looking for that summer shade. Time just slips away. Oh, Louisiana, some kind of hold on me. Like cypress stumps, your roots are planted deep inside of me.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Yo, Jake here from my friends over at Community Steel Company located in Gonzales, Louisiana. The local place you can turn to for all of your metal building needs. Notice I said local, not Houston, not Dallas, not Atlanta, but right here in Gonzales. Visit them at their brand new state-of-the-art website at communitysteelco.com or pick up the phone and give them a call today to answer all of your questions on your metal buildings, roofing and sheet metal, and any other steel needs you or your business need at 225-647-2020.
At Relief Windows, we're more than windows. We're windows, doors, party plank, and vinyl siding. But our number one product is always customer satisfaction. Visit us online.
Moscona inviting you to join us for Monday's AFR, presented by Relief Windows, recapping a busy weekend out at the box. LSU, Mississippi State in hoops. Join us for Monday's AFR, 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Welcome back to the Hunt Palmer Show. Taylor Sharp here with you, filling in for Mr. Hunt Palmer for the remainder of the day. He will be back tomorrow. But you know what's almost back is March Madness. It's almost tournament time. It's bracketology season. And to break it all down for us, we're joined right now by Bill Bender of the Sporting News. Bill, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I want to dive into bracketology a little bit. We'll save LSU for the end because they kind of put a damper on things on Saturday. We'll get into that, though. I want to talk about the top of this upcoming bracket. I mean, it's a little bit of a wide open field right now. I mean, outside of UConn, if the season ended today, the tournament started tomorrow, who do you think are those top number one seeds?
Well, I'd go UConn, Purdue, Houston, and probably North Carolina. I think North Carolina would get that fourth number one seed, and based on some of the things that they've done. And I think Arizona and Tennessee will be in that discussion. There are three SEC schools in that discussion, including Tennessee. And Tennessee, obviously, with their schedule remaining, 4 straight ranked opponents, I mean, they could obviously play themselves into that.
How wide open is this field this year, in your opinion?
I think it's pretty wide open from the standpoint all these teams have holes. I mean, we've watched UConn get blown out by Creighton. We've watched Purdue get beat by Ohio State and Houston. I think those three have separated themselves a little bit, and then North Carolina, Arizona, and then several other teams. Yeah, I mean, it could be just as wide open as last year. I do like UConn, though. There are 4 players averaging double figures. Danny Hurley certainly has figured things out, and they'll be the team to beat. I mean, they're the defending national champions.
Well, it's crazy to say that. Like, yes, they are the defending national champions. They lose Jordan Hawkins, who's been a really good addition for the New Orleans Pelicans, and they're almost better this year than they were a year ago, right?
Well, sometimes that happens. Sometimes you have a team that, they get the confidence from the experience from winning the national championship. and that balance offensively is huge. So I do think they'll go into that tournament, but it's hard to repeat. I mean, we haven't had a repeat champion since Florida, and that was a long time ago with the Joakim Noah team. So that everybody will be gunning for them. I think there'll be a lot of pressure on Purdue, given what's happened in the tournament the last couple seasons, and I think there'll be Houston is that team that you just never know. They play really tough defense, and they've always done that. But it'll be one of those things where we'll see how they do when they get in the tournament.
Speaking of Houston, changing conferences into a basketball conference that's as good as the Big 12 is, they're kind of the best team out of that conference right now. What have you made of them this year?
Kansas is tough. The Houston is tough. We have 10 teams out of the Big, or 9 out of the Big 12 in the tournament. Cincinnati, we've got them on the bubble. I'm about to publish another bracketology. That's why I'm telling you that. So little tease there. And it's one of those things where we'll definitely see if Houston can do it. I think they're absolutely capable of getting to the Final Four. Kansas the same. Kansas is tricky to pick in brackets. You probably know that over the years. You never know. The year you lay off of Kansas is the year they typically win it.
Yeah, and look, Bill, we've talked about a lot of the top teams in this tournament. I understand the brackets are not out. Nothing is finalized yet. But as far as teams that have a shot to get into the tournament, is there a sleeper out there that anybody needs to look out for?
To get in, on the bubble?
Yeah, but if they get in, could make some noise.
That Richmond is interesting. We've got them on the bubble right now. There's a couple good A10 teams. I think South Florida has played really well, but they are blocked off a little bit by FAU. I mean, one of those teams that you got to hope for a at-large bid among the two. So I think those are a couple dangerous teams. I mean, Gonzaga, right? There's a lot of bracketologists that don't have them in, which is kind of peculiar to me, but I'd have them in right now, and I think a team that has made the tournament every year since 1998 would be very dangerous to play come March.
Bill Bender joining us right now of the Sporting News. We're talking a little bracketology. Bill, I got to ask because this is a smaller school, but it's right here in the state of Louisiana, and their head coach has some ties to Baton Rouge. Will Wade's doing a heck of a job right now at McNeese. They're 24-3 overall. They're 13-1 in the Southeastern Conference. The Southland Conference. If this team wins their conference tournament like they are currently favored to do, what kind of ceiling do you see for the Cowboys?
Well, they're one of those danger teams, and I'm a MAC graduate, so I actually pay really close attention to these schools as it's part of the job. Having a 13-1 record, solid Ken Palm 52 or 65 Ken Palm 52 net rating. Those are good numbers. And as they get into the tournament, those are the teams, the ones that around 30 wins, which who knows if they get to 30, but their winning percentage is going to be high enough that you don't want to see that. And another thing I always look at, how many guys have they got that can get you? They got 3 guys that can score double figures. That's one of those teams you just don't want to catch. If you're looking at a 12-13 seed, probably a 12, that's one of those 5-12 games, and we all know the history behind those.
Yeah, shifting from the Southland to the Southeastern Conference, Bill, as far as the SEC goes, how strong do you view this conference this year, and how many teams you think could make it to the big dance?
I'm sorry, which conference? You cut out there.
The SEC.
SEC. Well, 8, right? 3 right up the top. Kentucky's always dangerous. One team we're putting off the bubble right now is Ole Miss. They lost their last 2 games. So right now, in our this bracketology that's going to publish very shortly, we will have 7 in. Ole Miss on the bubble, which I still think they could trend in, and then Texas A&M's kind of fallen off a little bit of a losing skid for them. So I definitely think those are the schools to watch in particular. But, you're going to have 3 on the top 16 in the whole tournament between Auburn, Tennessee, Alabama. We know how dangerous Kentucky is. Florida, South Carolina, their rankings aren't as good as the team that they have. I still think they're pretty tough.
Speaking of the Kentucky Wildcats, they started 12-2 this season. Since then, they're 7-6. What do you think's going wrong right now in Lexington? Because they're one of the deeper teams in the conference, it seems like, and they have a ton of talent. We know Calipari's been there, done that. What do you think's kind of ailing the Wildcats at the moment?
No, they're just inconsistent. I mean, they can blow somebody out and then get beat by the next game. So I think that's a team that definitely they'll be one of the hardest ones to pick in your bracket because they can make or break your bracket because of that talent that right now we have them at a 5 seed, and we're looking for them to keep that going. And again, another team with some tough games down the stretch here. So, I mean, that's the classic team when they're playing their A game, they can beat anybody in the country. If they're off, they could lose to anybody in the country. And that's the trick with picking a team like Kentucky. I know some Kentucky fans are frustrated with how that's gone with John Calipari in recent seasons, but definitely it will be interesting to see how they do.
What do you think Calipari's future in Lexington is? Because fans are not happy right now.
But that's the question, right? Like, well, okay, fire him. Who are you going to get?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's I always ask that one first. I mean, you're not going to find somebody with that kind of charisma, that kind of track record in a lot of ways. And I get it. They've had a couple bad years in the tournament, and you got to go all the way back to, I believe, 2012 for their last national title. But at the same time, other than 2020-21, 22 wins or more pretty much every year since 2013-14. So you can just as easily slide. And with the expectations, that's arguably, I would say it is the toughest job in the country to coach basketball at Kentucky, and he's done a fantastic job at it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it would be a little foolish to part ways with him now. Bill, I want to shift to the LSU Tigers, and they put a damper on things on Saturday. They looked great coming into the game. They had back-to-back top 20 wins against South Carolina and then the thriller against Kentucky. They lose by 20 to Mississippi State in a game that I at least thought they were going to be competitive in. They shoot horribly, but look, this LSU squad, they got 4 games remaining in the regular season. They have a chance to win out. They'll probably be favored in those remaining games. Let's say LSU wins out in the regular season. What can they do, if anything, in the SEC tournament to get in?
Well, I mean, they'd have to get a deep run, obviously, and then, if not that, maybe the NIT happens. But, one stat to keep in mind with Coach McMahon is you look at his first 2 years at Murray State, 33-31, 28-32 so far, and then what happened in his third year, 26-6, 28-5. Obviously, John Morant was a part of that successful run at Murray State, but he's a guy that I think can definitely do a nice job, and we'll look for him to continue that. So it's just building a program, and I think for me, it's less about getting to the tournament because that's going to be a long shot at this point. Where they sit on the bubble, they would have to make a very deep run in the SEC tournament to have a chance against, the NIT. They're in the same situation in some ways, program-wise, but record-wise, as Ohio State, which has had a couple nice wins here since they hired Chris Holtman, but they're still a long way off from the tournament.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, do you like the Tigers in these 4 remaining games? Because they're against kind of the bottom feeders of the conference.
Well, that's what you got to do. You got to take care of business in those games. And, the inconsistency that I talked about with Kentucky has happened with LSU as well. So, if you go 3-1 in that stretch, that'd be building toward the SEC tournament. You want to get out of that first round if you can and go from there. But this is such a deep conference where I really think once you get past Kentucky, there is some level of parity where anybody could, and we've seen a little bit of that, where anybody can knock anybody off. But any one of those teams from 5 to 14 could make a run. But it's about which team shakes up that picture and can knock off an Auburn somehow, or a Tennessee, Alabama, or Kentucky, and prevent that from being that top 4 on Saturday. They play this championship game on that one, and do they still do that one on Sunday?
Yeah.
So it's trying to get to Saturday.
So basically, LSU almost has to win the tournament at this point to get in.
Oh, I pretty much do, yeah. It's going to be tough otherwise. I mean, you got to look at the net rankings and those kind of things, and the losses as they pile up. And another thing for those schools that are trying to snag bids, problem is I think South Florida and Florida Atlantic, that could be a 2-bid league. Mountain West is no longer just a 1 or 2 bid league. They may have 4 or 5 schools get in. Gonzaga, I talked about them earlier. Even in an at-large situation, they beat Kentucky, so I'm not seeing the committee leave the Bulldogs out, despite not a lot of quad 1 success. So all of those things kind of wrinkle into it, and we'll see what happens. But, yeah, I think they would have to win the SEC tournament to get, or at least get to the conference championship to have a chance.
All right, you have it here. Bill Bender putting a damper on things here on a Monday. I'm totally kidding, Bill. Bill, I have kept you long enough. That was a wealth of information. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, you set me up with those questions. Hey, thanks. I love having coming on you guys' show down there. Thanks so much for having me on. Let's do it again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. That was Bill Bender there from the Sporting News, and he put a damper on LSU basketball, but that was the hard truth of it, right? You had to have that Mississippi State win. We're going to take a quick timeout. On the other side of this break, we're going to recap that Mississippi State win as well as the SEC basketball schedule as a whole from this past weekend. Then we'll talk about LSU's chances of winning out. That's coming up here on a Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
It's not storm season right now, which is a good thing, but there's always another one coming. Boudreaux's Electric can help you prepare for that. What a great time it is now to give yourself the peace of mind that you're not going to lose power. Boudreaux's is a certified Generac generator dealer. They're a premier Generac generator dealer. That means they're in the top 3% nationwide. Neil and Melissa have been running that business for 40 years. They give you a free 10-year warranty on every Generac generator purchase. Free for 10 years. And if you just talk about that 10-year warranty for $5.20 a day, you can be protected from outages. Whether you're going to evacuate and come home to a house that's functioning and has the fridge and freezer rolling and isn't 97 degrees, or whether or not you ride it out. Power goes out, you can still run the TV and the AC unit, and it's like nothing ever happened. Peace of mind that comes with that $5.20 a day just means so very much. Always appreciate our friends over at Boudreaux's Electric. Invite you to check them out online or give them a call. It's Boudreaux's Electric.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big.
On Tuesdays, OTB, we'll preview the week that will be for LSU baseball, plus your latest football news. We got Coach Kim Mulkey stopping by. Nick Underhill's going to break down the black and gold, and a brand new OTB mailbag. Off the bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Welcome back to a Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Taylor Sharp filling in for Hunt Palmer. Closing on a new house today is my guy, Hunt Palmer. So we are with you for the next hour and a half or so here on this Monday. I teased it before the break. I want to recap LSU basketball over the weekend. It was obviously a disappointing loss, 87-67 at the hands of the Mississippi State Bulldogs. This is a game that not only did I think LSU had a shot at being competitive in, I was holding out hope that they could actually win this game. I mean, they were riding high, back-to-back top 20 wins, both in dramatic fashion. They get a narrow win over the South Carolina Gamecocks. And then, of course, the last-second tip-in by Tyrell Ward to beat Kentucky last week in the midweek. Just a stinker of a game for the LSU Tigers. And you know, when you look at it, I always have this saying that there's always one outlier stat in a basketball game that shows why a team won or lost that game. And when you look at the numbers, I mean, Mississippi State shot 46%, you shot 41%. Okay, a little bit of a disparity there. They had 21 total rebounds. And then they had 37 rebounds, LSU 34. So you're right there. LSU 15 turnovers, Mississippi State 12, and you're like, how did they lose by 20 points? Here's where it is. Mississippi State as a team shot 47.6% from 3 on Saturday. LSU, 17.6% from 3 on Saturday. Tigers win just 3 for 17 from behind the arc. That's what happens when your best three-point shooter gets injured early in the game. Of course, I'm talking about Tyrell Ward. We don't really have an update on his injury yet, but it didn't look great. It was a leg injury. And, you know, if you've heard any of us on Off the Bench, our morning show, I'm a big LSU basketball fan. And obviously Jordan Wright is very important to this team, right? Offense runs through him. Since Jalen Cook's been out, who you desperately need to come back, by the way, the offense runs entirely through Jordan Wright. But Tyrell Ward might be the most important player on LSU's basketball team. And the reason is because he's by far your best three-point shooter. So I just mentioned it a second ago. You're already without Jalen Cook, who's probably your second best three-point shooter. And then 13 minutes into the ball game, Tyrell Ward goes down with an injury. He goes 1 for 2 from 3. The rest of the team, 2 for 15. Jordan Wright went 1 for 2. Derek Fountain went 1 for 2. That's it. So on a team that lacks a lot of size, I mean, you have size with Will Baker and Hunter Dean. They're not physically imposing presence down low. I mean, Baker's more of a wing shooter. He can step out. He can hit the three. Really good at the mid-range game. Not a dominant presence down low. Hunter Dean, not really either. So you have height. You don't have a premier post player, if you will. Now, you're pretty good at driving to the lane, and honestly, Trey Hannibal kept you in this game for what you could call being kept into a game when you lose by 20 points. He had 22. He was really good. He went 9 of 18. The problem with Trey Hannibal is he has no outside shot. He never has. That's not his game. He's a aggressive, drive to the basket guy, play lockdown defense on the other side. So he played his game perfectly. That's not what you needed here, because not only were you down your top 2 3-point shooters, Mississippi State had an outlier game from the three-point line in a good way. I mean, they shot almost 48% as a team for the entire game. It's very hard to beat someone like that. But three-point shooting was how you got back into the game against Kentucky. Because if you remember, that was a back-and-forth game between LSU and Kentucky. And then at the end of the first half, that lead kind of ballooned up to 9. So then you're down by 9. You're a little disheartened because you're like, we were right in this thing for most of the first half. Now we're down by almost double digits. As soon as the second half started, what happened? Kentucky came out. They hit back-to-back threes. Now you're down 15. But after that, LSU goes on a 15-2 run of their own, hitting multiple three-pointers. That's what's gotten you back into a lot of games. You fell in a hole early against Tennessee. You were able to battle back. Now, they ultimately pulled away at the end. You fell in a hole against Georgia early in the year. Hitting those deep threes was how you got back into that game. You didn't have it in this game because your two best three-point shooters were down. So as much as I think Jordan Wright is the leader of this team, I think they go as he goes. Tyrell Ward might be the most important player on this entire team. Now, look, as far as the SEC as a whole goes, you have winnable games coming up on your schedule, right? You have Arkansas remaining, Georgia remaining, and then Missouri. Missouri hadn't won a conference game. They're 0-14. They lost again by double digits to an Arkansas team who's 5-9 in the SEC. Missouri's not very good. I think you're going to be favored in all 4 of these remaining games. The question is, can you win all 4? Because you're 6-8 right now in the SEC. If you win all 4, you're 10-8. And we just talked to Bill Bender last segment. He's very pessimistic about this Tiger team's chances of getting in the NCAA tournament. That's fine. Let's put that out the window for a second and talk about Matt McMahon building a program. Bill laid it out for you. 32-31 his first 2 years at Murray State. Then he goes 26-4 the next year and makes it to the Sweet 16. This year is a building block year. Last year almost doesn't count. I mean, heck, the guy had 0 players on his roster when he took over. They win their first SEC game on the road against Arkansas. It's really hard to win in Bud Walton. After that, nothing. Nothing else the rest of the year. You've already exceeded a lot of people's expectations. I think this team's over-under win-wise in the SEC this year was 5.5. You're already 6-8. So this is a building block year. These remaining 4 games, they're all very winnable. Go out there, win these games. Heck, get into the SEC tournament, win 2 or 3. Maybe you can sneak into the NCAA tournament. I think if they win out in the regular season, they're already in the NIT. They might be in it now, but I think if they win out the rest of the regular season, they're in the NIT. And thankfully, you have this remaining schedule because I think the SEC is actually pretty good this year. Bill laid it out a second ago. This is probably an 8-bid league here. I mean, look, let's just look at some of the top teams. I mean, Florida, who's been up and down, they're ranked in the top 25 now at number 24. They've won a few games in a row. They had a double-digit victory over Vanderbilt, who I understand is not very good, but Florida's playing really well on both sides of the ball, their defense especially. We know what South Carolina has. The big win LSU had over them, but they're in the top 20 still. They're 10-4 in the SEC. Kentucky, who has been so inconsistent this year, they beat a really good Alabama team pretty handily. I mean, it was 117-95. Anybody who watched that LSU-Kentucky game last weekend knows how deep this basketball team is. You got a good starting 5. It's as good as anybody in the SEC, but you got Rod Dillingham and Reed Sheppard both coming off the bench. Not a lot of teams in the SEC can say that. Auburn, of course, Bruce Pearl, he's always going to have them competitive. Tennessee's ranked 5th in the country right now, and they're rolling. Texas A&M's a top 5 team in the country in terms of offensive rebounding. Yeah, Tennessee shut that down on Saturday. They win the game 86-51. So LSU has a chance at the weakest part of their schedule, if you will, to close this thing out on a high note. As far as where things stand in the SEC, let's look at the standings real quick before we go to break. As far as the top 4 teams, I can't put Alabama in my top 4 in the SEC. I get it. They're second in the conference right now at 11-3. They're 19-8 overall. They're playing well. Alabama has no defense. And in a game like you saw the other day, they scored 92 points and still lost by double digits because they gave up 117 to Kentucky. Alabama has one off shooting day. They lose that game because they have no defense. That's kind of been the norm under Nate Oates so far. Because every year they get into the tournament and people are like, hey, watch out for Alabama. They can score. They can shoot with the best of them. They can run you off the court. Yeah, that's true for a game or two. But ask yourself why Alabama's never been able to get it to the Final Four under Nate Oates because they're not consistent enough on the defensive side of the ball. The teams that win the NCAA tournament every year, they're senior-led. They shoot really good free throws. They're really good on defense. Alabama's none of those things. I mean, they're good from the free throw line, but not a ton of veterans on this team. You have a few, and then you're really bad on defense. I can't put them in my top 4. Tennessee, by far, best team in the conference. I think Dalton Knecht, one of the best pure scorers in the NCAA. I mean, he jumped from a mid-major to the SEC, and he's the best scorer in the conference right now. I mean, the kid can flat out shoot the ball. South Carolina, I got him at 2. I get it. They had a tough loss to LSU. Losses happen in basketball. They're still 10-4 in the conference. They're still playing really good team basketball. Auburn at 3, obviously. They're also 10-4. They've been one of the most consistent teams in the SEC all year long. And at number 4, I'm putting the Kentucky Wildcats. For a talent standpoint. I get it. They've been inconsistent the last month and a half to 2 months of the season, but you bounce back in a big way against LSU. It would have been really easy for that Kentucky team to fall apart after the LSU victory. LSU beats them. It's a big upset. Kentucky actually played pretty well in that second half. You lose that game, you're disheartened in heartbreaking fashion. What do? You turn around, you play a top 25 team, and you beat them by 15 points. So I got Tennessee, South Carolina, Auburn, and Kentucky. Can't put Alabama in my top 4 right now. Their defense isn't good enough. All right, look, that's going to do it for our basketball portion of the show. As far as college, we're going to come back. We may talk a little New Orleans Pelicans, and then one really important note as far as a coaching hire in college football that may impact LSU. We'll talk about that coming up right after this break here on the Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
ESPN Bet is now live in Louisiana and is the official sportsbook of ESPN. ESPN Bet's the only place to find daily exclusives and offers with your favorite ESPN personalities and shows. You can sign up today, and new users get $100 in bonus bets for making any sportsbook bet. I did this a couple of weeks ago. You make one bet, $5, win or lose, $100 right into the account so that you can bet. You can find all your favorite markets and bets like in-game wagering, cross-sport parlays, teasers, and all the props that you can handle. That's ESPN Bet. Download today. What a play. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. In partnership with LeBares Lake Charles, terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Bayou Ford has new 23 Ford F-150 STX trucks for only $39,995. $39,995 plus 1.9% financing for 72 months. And all new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
At Relief Windows, we're more than windows. We're windows, doors, hardy plank, and vinyl siding. But our number one product is always customer satisfaction. Visit us online at reliefwindows.com.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Yo, Jake here from my friends over at Community Steel Company located in Gonzales, Louisiana. The local place you can turn to for all of your metal building needs. Notice I said local, not Houston, not Dallas, not Atlanta, but right here in Gonzales. Visit them at their brand new state-of-the-art website at communitysteelco.com or pick up the phone and give them a call today to answer all of your questions on your metal buildings, roofing and sheet metal, and any other steel needs you or your business need at 225-647-2020.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to.
Moscona inviting you to join us for Monday's AFR, presented by Relief Windows, recapping a busy weekend out at the box, LSU, Mississippi State in hoops. Join us for Monday's AFR, 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Welcome back into the Hunt Palmer Show as we close out hour number 1 here on a Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Of course, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. We talked a lot of basketball, right? We led the show with baseball, but a lot of basketball talk the last 2 segments. Let's put that behind us. Let's shift to football because there's some college football news out there that LSU fans might be interested in because, well, it impacts one of the opponents you play this year. September 21st, the UCLA Bruins are coming to Tiger Stadium. They're going to have a new offensive coordinator, and it's a name that anyone who watches any sort of football is familiar with. Sources say Eric Bieniemy is set to be UCLA's next offensive coordinator. He's actually going to be offensive coordinator and associate head coach. This is a guy that everybody seems like they have a strong opinion of. Some love him. Some think he deserves to be an NFL coach by now. Some say, hey, it was Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes that made that offense go in Kansas City. Well, last year he was at Washington. He got Sam Howell to throw for a lot of yards. The problem was they didn't score a ton of points. They were really bad in the red zone. The Commanders' offense last year was very similar to the New Orleans Saints offense, right? In between the 20s, they were awesome. But then you only averaged about 19.5 points a game if you were Washington, up from 18.5. So they didn't even improve that much from the year before Bieniemy got there. So he's a guy that has a lot to prove. And he's interviewed for multiple head coaching jobs. There is no secret that this guy wants to be a head coach. Maybe this is his best path to doing that, right? I mean, they just hired Deshaun Foster at UCLA to be the head coach. He's an alum from there. He has NFL experience. You bring in Bieniemy to be offensive coordinator and associate head coach. I mean, who's to say Bieniemy can't have a really good year calling plays for the Bruins? Turn that into a small head coaching job, build up in the college coaching ranks, and then make a move like we've seen Jim Harbaugh do twice now, moving from college to the NFL. If you want to be an NFL head coach, this might be Eric Bieniemy's best opportunity to do that. And you know, this impacts LSU because what's a big name, right? He's won a lot of big games. He's a Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator. How much did he have to do with that? I don't know because, you know, guys on the roster like Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, they're like, oh, no, it's Eric Bieniemy. But at the same time, what are you supposed to say? Are you supposed to say my current offensive coordinator is a bum and it's all Andy Reid? I mean, I fully expected them to throw their hat in the ring for an Eric Bieniemy. Now, LaShawn McCoy, who had played for the Chiefs, after he was gone, he said, no, Eric Bieniemy was not the primary play caller. That was Andy Reid. So, you know, a big name hire. How is he going to do this? And, you know, he doesn't have a ton of experience in the college game. He's been in the NFL forever. This is intriguing, and we get to see it firsthand when the Bruins come to Tiger Stadium September 21st. Looking forward to that game. You know, Ethan Garber's the starting quarterback at UCLA. He did some good things last year. He had an up-and-down year. It'll be interesting to see how Bieniemy works with him because I mentioned all the interceptions by Sam Howell. He still was like leading the league in passing about the halfway mark of the year last year. And if you would have told me that Sam Howell at any point in the year would have led the league in passing yards, I'd have said no way. So while I don't think Eric Bieniemy is a finished product by any means, I think there's a lot to like with this. I think that UCLA could turn this into something pretty special. Again, can Bieniemy turn this into a head coaching job? I think he can. I think that's ultimately why he took this job. Now, all the offensive coordinator positions in the NFL were already full, but hey, maybe this is the best path for a guy like Eric Bieniemy to get a head coaching job. We see it more and more. College coaches making the jump to the NFL. Maybe that's what Bieniemy needs. He's like, hey, I've never been a head coach. Let me go to the college ranks, learn how to be a head coach, turn that in to an NFL gig. I wish him the best of luck, except on September 21st when they come to Tiger Stadium. But Eric Bieniemy set to be the next offensive coordinator and associate head coach for the UCLA Bruins. All right, look, that's going to wrap up hour number one, giving you a little bit of a recap. We kicked things off recapping the weekend that was for LSU baseball. Their 4-game series has started on Thursday, wrapped up yesterday afternoon. It's going to be wall-to-wall football in hour number two. We'll get into that. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's all coming up here in hour number two of the Hunt Palmer Show here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
The importance of doing this Fortified program and offering it to people down here is, number one, the only real chance you're going to get to do this is when you put on a new roof or build new. And through companies like HUDCO, who's kind of leading the way in this thing, it's going to offer the customers a huge advantage in the insurance market and the price of their insurance.
You know, we're not looking to make a fortune off fortifying. We're trying to give you a better product than our competitor at the moment. I'm trying to do something that he can. I'm trying to give you something better. So a lot of these insurance jobs, you're getting a re-roof, you're only paying your deductible. Let's sit down and talk about the Fortified and let's see what it does to your insurance premium. You're getting a steal.
Yeah.
You're getting a brand new roof and a Fortified certificate for your deductible, essentially. I think we're rocking and rolling.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Yo, Jake here from my friends over at Community Steel Company located in Gonzales, Louisiana. The local place you can turn to for all of your metal building needs. Notice I said local, not Houston, not Dallas, not Atlanta, but right here in Gonzales. Visit them at their brand new state-of-the-art website at communitysteelco.com or pick up the phone and give them a call today to answer all of your questions on your metal buildings, roofing and sheet metal, and any other steel needs you or your business need at 225-647-2020.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi. The Bengals position themselves to keep receiver T. Higgins at least one more season, place the franchise tag on him. Sides have until July 15th to work out a long-term deal, or Higgins plays in 2024 on the $21.8 million receiver tag. Running backs Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard won't be tagged by their respective teams this offseason. The Raiders, Giants, and Cowboys, they are expected to become free agents. On the I Am Athlete podcast, quarterback Russell Wilson said he hopes he can finish his career in Denver, but for him, it's about winning, wants to win 2 Super Bowls the next 2 years. That'll be a stretch for Wilson, believes unsportsmanlike co-host Chris Canty.
For Russell Wilson, it's a team that is a competent quarterback away from being in the postseason. I don't think there's a team in the NFL that's a Russell Wilson away from winning a championship, but I do think there are several places in the NFL that are a Russell Wilson away from getting into the postseason and winning a playoff game.
Broncos are expected to release Wilson in the coming weeks. NBA Warriors guard Chris Paul set to return from a fractured hand tomorrow night against the Wizards.
Hey, it's your resident Super Bowl champ, Chris Canty. Coming up Tuesday as the NFL Combine gets going, I'll tell you what I'll be paying attention to the most this week. It's Unsportsmanlike, 6 a.m. Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I direct your attention to something quite extraordinary?
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show. The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
This is not Hunt Palmer. Taylor Sharp here with you. 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge, filling in for Hunt Palmer on the Hunt Palmer Show. My guy is closing on a house today. Should be doing that, well, really any moment now. He's moving, staying in Baton Rouge, just, expanding a little bit. My guy Hunt Palmer moving up in the world, if you will. But I am hanging out with you for the next 60 minutes or so. Look, it's going to be wall-to-wall football here in the second hour. We're going to talk a little LSU. Next segment, we're going to be joined by Matthew Paris. We're going to talk some Saints, some contract restructuring of Derek Carr, thoughts on Clint Kubiak, you name it. We got it as far as offseason Saints topics. Then we're going to talk about the top 5 teams in the NFL that need to win this offseason. I'll explain more when we get a little bit closer. And then, of course, we're going to close things out, as we do every day on the Hunt Palmer Show, with a little bit of take it or leave it. But look, let's start where the biggest football in the area, right? The LSU Tigers. Spring practice is going to kick off March 5th. So, look, we're only about a week and a half away at this point, and I'm excited, right? I mean, they have the come-from-behind win against Wisconsin in the bowl game. Garrett Nussmeier looked great. I think he's going to have a really solid year. We know about all the positives. I kind of want to dive into some of the red flags, the biggest question marks heading into spring, if you will. Obviously, the place where everybody starts is the defensive line, mainly defensive tackle. It's just a pure lack of bodies right now and experience. Mason Smith leaving and entering his name in the NFL draft, I think really put this team in a bad spot that they probably did not expect to be in. Brian Kelly had his post-signing day press conference, and he said, look, we feel like we're in a good spot defensive tackle-wise as far as people returning. Well, not long after that, Mason Smith's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and enter the NFL draft. He'll be at the Combine later this week, showing what he can do in a little bit of a questionable move. I mean, it's no secret that Mason Smith, a little bit of a disappointing career here in Baton Rouge, but we'll see what he can do on the next level. As far as what you have returning, as far as experience, it's Jacoby and Guillory. That's it. I mean, you have Jalen Lee coming back. That's a body, but has played sparingly so far his time here in Baton Rouge. Those are your 2 defensive tackles that were on the roster last year that are still here. Now, who did you sign? Who did you bring in? As far as your defensive line signees, you got Gabriel Relaford. He weighs 255 pounds. He's probably a defensive end. You brought in Ahmad Bro. He's around 250. He is also a defensive end. You got Shone Washington from the transfer portal, the former Georgia Bulldog. Then he went JUCO. Now he's going to be at LSU. You brought in 5-star Dominic McKinley, who everyone's excited about. Then freshman Demarion Johnson. That's all you got right now. So you got Guillory, Lee, then Shone Washington, Dominic McKinley, Demarion Johnson. It's 5 guys. Defensive line, don't need to tell you. They're in the trenches. They get banged up a lot. Having 5 guys to start spring practice is really concerning for me. Now, look, there's a late transfer portal window. We all know they could always add someone after spring finishes, but I mean, you're just lacking a lot of bodies there. The next position I want to look at is cornerback. You lose a lot with the transfers. Deuce Chestnut, you just brought in a year ago. He showed flashes. He's gone. He's in the transfer portal. Denver Harris, he's gone. He plays at UTSA now. So not only do you lose guys from a group that, frankly, wasn't very good a year ago. I mean, let's just call it like it is. At one point, I think they were like 128 out of like 135 teams as far as pass defense goes. So who's back? Ashton Stamps is back, and I mentioned him first because he's the guy I'm the most excited about. I think towards the latter half of the year, he was probably your most consistent guy. He didn't start a ton of games, but he got in there just about every game the back half of the year. I thought he showed promise. Now, obviously, he made freshman mistakes. He got beat deep a few times. That's going to happen as a freshman. He's a year older. This is his second year under Brian Kelly. He got an upgrade in defensive coordinator in Blake Baker. I think Ashton Stamps could be a really nice piece for this team. Now, Zy Alexander returns, who was really your best corner until he went down with injury. Has he fully recovered from that injury? We don't know. But he's a big, rangy guy, about 6'3", which is a rarity as far as college corners go. He has good ball skills. Again, he was probably your most consistent guy before he went down with injury. Then you got Jeremiah Hughes, who filled in a lot once Alexander went down with that injury. He had an injury. He had some inconsistencies. Kind of got passed up a little bit by Ashton Stamps late in the year. And, of course, we all know about Javian Taviano. I mean, he was the 5-star extraordinaire when he got here. He could play corner or safety. I personally like him better as a safety. I think that's his natural position, but he held his own at corner. He didn't look out of place at all, even though he was kind of playing out of position. You also got Sage Ryan coming back, a guy that entered the portal, and then Brian Kelly and company convinced him to come back for another year. He's a guy that's been on the team for a long time. He's played a lot of different positions. He came in as a safety, then they moved him to nickel, played some outside corner last year along with nickel. He's a guy that you can kind of plug and play everywhere. Again, has obviously had his struggles and his inconsistencies, but as far as experience, far and away the most experienced guy in your secondary as far as the cornerback room goes. Then you have J.K. Johnson. He was supposed to be a big piece of last year's team. He got hurt in fall camp. He was out all season long. How is he recovering from that injury? He's a guy that had a lot of talent. He was the Ohio State transfer. Everyone was high on him. What are you going to get out of J.K. Johnson here in 2024? So you have a lot of bodies, not a ton of experience, though. And the transfer portal, you got Jair Brown. I think that's kind of the big portal target that you got, the one that everyone's expecting big things from. He, like J.K. Johnson, also an Ohio State transfer. He's coming in. I know a lot of people are like, hey, if he has a really good spring, he's going to grab a hold of one of those outside corner positions. Great, I hope he does. Because everyone else coming in outside of Jair Brown is a freshman. You got Juwan Johnson, the 4-star cornerback from LCA. He was listed as an athlete. He was great both sides of the ball in college, just a pure athlete. Bernard Causey, the 3-star coming in. P.J. Woodland, a 3-star coming in. Then Wallace Foster, another 3-star. That's it as far as pure corners. Now, can you cross-train some of your safeties? Absolutely. You did it with Javian Toviano a year ago. Who could you do it with, though? You got Jordan Gilbert, Austin Alsbury, Joel Rogers, Deshaun McBride. Unfortunately, I don't think any of those guys are going to be an outside corner. I think all of them really solid safeties. I think they were built for that position. So a lot of bodies at corner, not a ton of experience, kind of the reverse of what we've seen in defensive tackle. Defensive tackle, you just lack bodies. You got 5 guys. At corner, you got about 10 that I just rattled off. How many of them can be consistent? That's going to be the biggest question is, can you get 2 or 3 guys to emerge and separate themselves from the pack, if you will, in spring so you feel somewhat good about who your starters are going to be heading into fall camp? You couldn't do that a year ago. Can you do it this year? Another position that I have major concerns about that not a lot of people are mentioning is running back. You just lack numbers there. Now, obviously, a couple weeks ago, we are all aware of the Trey Holly situation. He got arrested, the 3 felony charges. You know the story. We don't know what his status is going to be. He's suspended indefinitely. He says he's innocent. We're going to find out. We're going to let that play out in court. But, I mean, his status is very much up in the air. Especially for spring ball, which I mentioned starts in about a week and a half. I'd be shocked if he was out there. So who do you have? You got Josh Williams, who's been on the team for about 85 years. And then you got Caleb Jackson. That's it for spring. Because you have Caden Durham coming in, the solid 4-star running back who everyone in the recruiting services absolutely loves. He's not supposed to be here until fall camp. But even with Caden Durham, without Trey Holly, even with Caden Durham, that's 3 guys. Josh Williams, Caleb Jackson, Caden Durham. Look, I get it. Running back's one of the easiest positions to translate from high school to college success. But you got to have bodies. I mean, last year you had 8 scholarship running backs, and that was probably too many, but you go from 8 to 4, potentially 3, depending on what happens with Trey Holly. Could you get a late transfer portal ad? I kind of think you can. Now, if you go look at the transfer portal, you're going to be very disheartened because I'm not going to lie to you, it's slim pickings out there. However, there's a few guys that could maybe make something happen for you. First guy I want to look at, Darvin Hubbard, the transfer from the Temple Owls. He's 6 foot. He's 205. He's got a good body. He was a spot player for him last year. This is a guy, if you brought in, obviously not to start, he would be a depth piece, maybe help you out on special teams, see what you can do with him. In 2 seasons at Temple, he ran for a little over 600 yards. He averaged 4.5 yards per carry. He had 5 touchdowns. Solid numbers, nothing that's going to jump off the page at you, but again, a depth piece nonetheless. Another guy I want to look at is a guy who just entered the transfer portal this past Friday, and he's undersized. He's 5'7", he's 185 pounds. But if his tape and his numbers aren't impressive, he was originally at Kent State. He was at Kent State from 2020 to 2022. Then last season transferred to Ball State. He's in the portal again. 2020, he played in 4 games. It was the COVID year. We'll call that one a wash. His first full year of college football, he had 1,205 yards rushing, 11 rushing touchdowns, average 5 yards a carry. 2022, 1,300 yards, 13 rushing touchdowns, 4.7 a carry. Okay, so he jumps up to Ball State. He wants to change his scenery. It was more of the same, y'all. 1,043 yards, 4.6 yards a carry, 4 rushing touchdowns. So in his 3.5-year career, if you want to call it, he has 3,800 yards, 33 rushing touchdowns, and is averaging 4.8 yards a carry. I get it. He's undersized. Ball State to the SEC is a big step up. But you need bodies, and you need bodies in a bad way. This is a guy that should be able to contribute something. Now, again, I like your talent. Josh Williams can be a starter. Caleb Jackson can be a starter. Heck, Caden Durham's going to get a lot of carries, and by all indications, he's going to be a really solid player here. But you need bodies in a bad way. Marquise Cooper, the Ball State transfer, he just entered the portal Friday. He's not committed anywhere yet. I mean, that would be call number 1 for me if I'm Brian Kelly looking for a running back. Because, again, Darvin Hubbard from Temple, he has decent numbers, but, I mean, Marquise Cooper shows that he's been a big-time running back. Again, it's at the group of 5 level, but he could get half of that production at LSU. I mean, that's still 500 yards rushing. Now, I don't think he would get that at LSU, but can he give you anything? You need bodies. We'll see what happens with the running back position, but hey, maybe Marquise Cooper, name to keep an eye on. It seems like it might be worth a call for Brian Kelly and the staff. All right, we're going to take a timeout. We're going to shift from the LSU Tigers to the New Orleans Saints. Matthew Paris, Saints beat reporter for the Times-Picayune and the Advocate. He's going to join us next here on the Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
The Hunt Palmer Show. In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Mardi Gras season, but I just want to talk to you a little bit about springtime and the wedding season. You got a big wedding party, you got a small wedding party. Looking for a different look, looking for the right fit the first time, come see me, Sam Willard, Harper's Haberdashery.
Harper's Haberdashery, Highland Road next to French Market Bistro, south of I-10. When you've been in the industry for over 20 years, you learn a few things. For one thing, you learn your product inside and out. But you also learn how to ask the right questions and give satisfying answers. Jim's Firearms.
You can hear all of your favorite shows on 104.5 ESPN in crystal clear high definition. Tune to 98.1 and select HD2.
On Tuesdays, OTB. We'll preview the week that will be for LSU baseball, plus your latest football news. We got Coach Kim Mulkey stopping by. Nick Underhill's going to break down the black and gold, and a brand new OTB mailbag. Off the bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Welcome back into the Hunt Palmer Show here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Taylor Sharp filling in for Mr. Hunt Palmer. And right now, I want to talk some New Orleans Saints. And joining us right now is Matthew Paris, a Saints beat reporter for the Times-Picayune and the Advocate. Matt, what's going on, man?
Hey, nothing much. Going to Indianapolis tomorrow, but nice to talk to you.
All right. You're going to be at the Combine. We'll get into that a little bit later. Matt, it's the offseason, right? And the offseason topics are aplenty right now for the New Orleans Saints. So let's just dive right into it. I guess the biggest and most recent news occurred kind of the middle of last week when the Saints announced that they were restructuring Derek Carr's contract. It saves them about $23 million in cap space. But what it does is it ties the Saints to Derek Carr for at least 2025. What do you make of that move?
Yeah, I mean, the way I had it explained to me by someone is that the Saints still have a little bit of flexibility if they want to get out of that contract in 2025. It's just now much harder to do so. By restructuring the deal, they move most of his $30 million base salary to a signing bonus that's now kind of extended over the length of the rest of the deal. So they're kind of just kicking down a can on the road, and it makes it kind of harder to get out of it in 2025, but it's not impossible.
Well, a person who's going to be vital to Derek Carr's success in New Orleans is new offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak. Look, this is a hire that they waited till after the Super Bowl to make. It kind of seems like he was their top guy all along. Thoughts on the Kubiak hire?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. Dennis Allen said that this is the offensive scheme that they wanted, that has been having a lot of success in the NFL. And I think Kubiak is someone that, he grew up in the system under his dad, obviously, with Gary Kubiak, and then has had some experience calling plays, which I think is important. As young as Clint Kubiak is, he's not necessarily going into this extremely raw. He called plays in Minnesota, he called plays in Denver. I just think it was a pretty smart hire overall, and I see why they landed on him.
Look, as far as Kubiak goes, yes, they love this guy. He was their top option. The Saints have a lot of holes to fill. They got a lot of free agents out there. Is there any free agent with the Saints right now that you just think that they have to bring back?
I don't know, not necessarily. I think Andres Pete would maybe qualify as that. He did a really good job at playing left tackle, but I think the draft is a position where if you're looking with the 14th pick, that is a spot where you could get necessarily his replacement. Now with Ryan Ramczyk and his uncertain injury history or shaky injury history with what happens with his knee, maybe you need a right tackle as well. So I think that complicates matters. But of those, I don't necessarily think they're must brings back. I think Zach Bond had a really nice year. I wouldn't blame him if he wanted to play elsewhere to land a role where he could play a little bit more consistently. But yeah, I would say Pete and maybe Bond.
As far as the offensive line goes, I get that, so many mock drafts come out and they're like, oh, well, the Saints are going to take an offensive lineman in the draft. Is there anybody in free agency you could see them target, before that draft comes around?
I don't know. What you mean for the offensive line or just in general?
Just in general.
Oh, yeah. Well, just in general, I think pass rush is really interesting. There are going to be some veterans on the market that maybe want to take a one-year deal to restore their stock. The guy that I've kind of mentioned, and I don't necessarily know if this is an actual possibility, but I covered him in Washington, was Chase Young. He was traded to San Francisco, had a pretty good game in the Super Bowl, but his stock necessarily isn't what he would probably want it to be as he looks to secure kind of a big contract. So maybe he needs somewhere to restore his value for 1 year. And I think New Orleans is a great opportunity for someone like that, where, that there's a clear pass rushing need. It's a really good defense overall. And Dennis Allen, I think, is a smart defensive coach. So, I could see them targeting a pass rusher given their struggles in that area last year, but I do think they'll primarily look through the draft.
Well, let's get into the draft a little bit, right? The Saints have the 14th pick right now in the first round. What do you think would they do with that pick? Do they target offensive line like we talked about? Did they go pass rush? They could even go receiver if they do best available. What do you think they do with that 14th pick?
Yeah, it's still really early to tell, but I do think the positions that you just mentioned kind of make the most sense. Either going with offensive line, the way that this draft is going to shake out is you probably have 4 quarterbacks in the top 8 that really puts the Saints in a good position to land kind of a premium player of another position, whether it's tackles. Joe Alt, who's the top tackle in the draft, will probably be gone by then. There's the Penn State kid who is likely gone as well. But you're looking at someone like J.C. Latham out of Alabama. He could make some sense for them. And then on the pass rushing side, you have Florida State's Jared Verse. He really kind of fits the profile of the type of pass rushers the Saints like and all that. So I kind of do think they'll look at the lines first, but you never know. Like Brock Bowers might be there from Georgia, and he might be too tempting to pass up. But, I do think the lines make the most sense.
As far as that 14th pick, since we were talking about it, you mentioned a guy like Brock Bowers, who every team in the NFL seems to love right now, right? I mean, he's one of the most coveted prospects in this draft. If the Saints are sitting there at 14 and somebody they really love is on the board, and let's say it's pick 9, do you think the Saints would trade up, and what would they have to do to get up there that high?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, we've seen Mickey Loomis and his staff do that before. They've definitely been aggressive in years past. Now, I think you could argue that it has cost them in recent years. I think trading up for Chris Olave was a really smart decision. But, you look at Trevor Penning, you look at Marcus Davenport, those deals where they traded up haven't necessarily panned out. So where the Saints are as a franchise right now, I don't necessarily know if they could afford that type of swing given what it would cost to move up. I mean, if you're moving up 5 spots, maybe you're giving up a second rounder or a third. I mean, the Saints don't have an extremely rich capital of assets to be parting with in the first place. So I don't necessarily know how realistic it is, but given Mickey Loomis's history, I'm sure he'll explore it at the very least.
I'm sure most Saints fans would not like if this happened, but I mean, it is a possibility. They restructured his contract a few weeks back to kind of make it easier for the Saints to get rid of him. And, you got a guy like Alante Taylor and Paulson Adebo playing well. Is there any situation in this draft where you could see the Saints maybe dealing Marshawn Lattimore for a higher pick?
I don't know. That's just the truth. I mean, I think there are pros and cons for doing it. I don't necessarily know what his market would be. I mean, you look at kind of similar situations around the NFL. The Jaguars when they traded. Oh no, I'm sorry. With the Rams when they traded Jalen Ramsey to the Dolphins, they traded him for like the 77th pick overall in the draft. Now, would the Saints be happy with a 3rd-round pick for Marshawn Lattimore? I don't know, but it's something that I hope to get an answer at the combine. It's kind of maybe my biggest question about this team right now is how open are they actually to trading Marshawn Lattimore? But right now, I do think I wouldn't blame them for exploring it, but I just don't know if they are.
You mentioned earlier the run on quarterbacks that they're going to have, right? I mean, there should be 4 easily inside the top 12. After that, it kind of seems like, there's a guaranteed top 3 with Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. Then there seems to be a little bit of a gap. Then you have Michael Penix, Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy. So, there's certainly a pecking order in this year's draft. I'm obviously not talking about first round, but I mean, everyone heard the interview Jameis Winston did lately, and he said, my goal is to one day be a starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't see that happening in New Orleans. So, with his time probably limited in New Orleans, maybe later in the draft, could you see the Saints taking a shot at a quarterback?
I could, but remember, they also drafted Jay Kaner last year, right? So I think they're clearly grooming him to be the backup quarterback behind Derek Carr. It really just kind of depends on how this draft shakes out. I really don't see them, especially in the first round, like Bo Nix or someone like that, Michael Penix. I just don't know if that makes a lot of sense for them with where they're at right now and trying to capitalize on this window that they have. But, going back to what you said about the 4th guy, I think J.J. McCarthy has kind of established himself early on here as that 4th guy. So that leaves kind of Bo Nix or Michael Penix or, take your choice. But I just don't know. I don't necessarily think it's as strong of a possibility as maybe I thought a few months ago when Derek Carr was struggling.
Matt Paris with us, Saints beat reporter for the Times-Picayune and the Advocate. Matt, you said you're heading up to the Combine tomorrow. Jaden Daniels already said he's not going to throw in this Combine. Caleb Williams is not either. Drake May, he's kind of mum on it. We don't know what's going to happen. What are your thoughts on guys that decide to throw and not throw? I mean, do you think there's a huge pro or con either way, or is it just kind of what teams have already seen of these guys?
Yeah, I mean, teams largely go with what they see on tape and what they hear from players when they talk to them at the combine. I think the interview aspect of the combine is much more important than throwing on open air. I think it helps. It can help in some certain situations, but I'm not going to knock the guy if he doesn't want to throw. They still have their pro day and stuff, so it is a little disappointing from like a fan perspective, but I don't necessarily think teams will mind it as much.
Matt, before we get you out of here, I got to ask, what are you going to be watching most closely or most excited for, I guess I should say, going to that combine in Indianapolis?
Yeah, it's really just a chance to network with people and talk and kind of find out what's happening with the Saints. This is my first experience with the Saints beat or focusing on the Saints. I covered the Commanders before, so finding out and getting to meet people who I haven't had a chance to meet necessarily yet. The combine's a really good opportunity to network and to find out some information behind the scenes. So hopefully it's successful that way.
Okay, so the way you're talking, and yes, you covered the Commanders before. I'm assuming this is not your first combine, correct?
No, it would be my fifth or sixth.
Okay, so what kind of access do you guys get at the combine? Because, I see people sitting in the bleachers all day long, obviously coaches and GMs, but like as a reporter, as a beat writer, what do you guys get to do? How much do you get to see maybe behind the scenes that a fan doesn't get to see?
Yeah, so in terms of actually watching the drills and stuff, that's not nearly as important as, it is to the evaluators from the media. You do get a chance to talk to like the prospects and stuff early in the morning. The prospects normally talk a day before they perform the drills and such. So I think the quarterbacks, for instance, they talk Friday, they throw on Saturday. So it's an opportunity to talk to them. And then a lot of teams will hold media availabilities either at the podium, kind of in this convention area. The Saints don't do that. I don't necessarily know if we'll be talking to the Saints people there, but historically in the past, they've held kind of local media availability for reporters on the side. So if that happens, maybe there's an opportunity to talk to Dennis Allen. But yeah, there is pretty good access there. And then there's also all the late night stuff where you go to bars and see people and kind of talk off the record and all that.
Matt, thank you so much for hopping on with me. Look, you're a busy guy. You got a trip to pack for. Thanks for hopping on, but enjoy Indianapolis, man.
Hey, appreciate it. Nice talking to you.
Absolutely. That was Matthew Paris, Saints beat reporter for the Times-Picayune and the Advocate. We're going to take a quick time out. We're going to continue our discussion of NFL football. We're going to shift from the New Orleans Saints to the NFL as a whole, the top 5 teams that need to win the offseason coming up here, whether it's in the draft or free agency. That's coming up right after this here on the Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show. Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
Happy New Year from your friends at Front to Back Boat Service. And what better way to kick off your new year than by taking your boat to the next level? Get the boat of your dreams, and that's where Front to Back comes into play. You want that spot lock trolling motor that's going to keep you right there on the water where you need to be. How about some forward-facing sonar that actually shows you the fish before you even cast? Custom stereo jobs, all of it. Sherman family's been doing it for 38 years. Go to fronttobackboatservice.com.
He's here. Anyone want a Coors Light?
Oh, shoot, I forgot to play the song. I got a guy who can fix this.
It was a humid day. Barefoot children play, looking for that summer shade. Time just slips away. Oh, Louisiana, like cypress stumps. Your roots are planted deep inside of me.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Yo, Jake here from my friends over at Community Steel Company located in Gonzales, Louisiana. The local place you can turn to for all of your metal building needs. Notice I said local, not Houston, not Dallas, not Atlanta, but right here in Gonzales. Visit them at their brand new state-of-the-art website at communitysteelco.com or pick up the phone and give them a call today to answer all of your questions on your metal buildings, roofing and sheet metal, and any other steel needs you or your business need at 225-647-2020.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Moscona inviting you to join us for Monday's AFR, presented by Relief Windows, recapping a busy weekend out at the box. LSU, Mississippi State in hoops. Join us for Monday's AFR, 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This February, just a few more days left in the month. 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge and Citizens Bank and Trust are here to offer you a holiday rebate to the tune of $1,000 in cash to help out. Signing up is as simple as heading to 1045ESPN.com. Yet again, guys, just a few days left to do that. It's our annual holiday rebate gift to you from Citizens Bank and Trust and 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Welcome back into the Hunt Palmer Show. Got another 20 minutes to go with you. Beck, are employees eligible for the holiday rebate?
No, they are not.
You know, I mean, I spent a lot of money this holidays. I'd like to have a little something back. But look, if you're listening, definitely do that. I'm a little bit envious. Okay, look, I teased it going into break. I want to do, obviously it's off season. You got to have a list. Everybody loves a list. You can yell, you can fight with each other. It's what being a fan is all about. I want to do the top 5 NFL teams that need to win this offseason. So what that means is whether getting a big-time free agent to improve an obvious hole, whether, grabbing the guy that you had to have in the NFL draft, you need to win this offseason. And that's, I'm not necessarily just including the 5 worst teams. As a matter of fact, 3 of the 5 teams on this list were playoff teams a year ago. It's just, teams that maybe got stale, maybe had a collapse. I'm looking at you, Philadelphia Eagles. It's a team that needs to bounce back. They need a win. So let's get started with number 5. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills. They obviously have the quarterback in Josh Allen. Jacob Hester, if he was in here, would shout me down on this. I think Josh Allen is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. He might even be top 3. Your running game improved last year, and that was a big question mark coming into the season, right? What are you going to do with your running game? Because Devin Singletary had been the guy for the last 2 or 3 years. He went off to Houston, but James Cook picked it up, and he picked it up in a big way. He was excellent last year. I have questions about the receiving core, including the future of Stephon Diggs. He seems like he's unhappy in Buffalo. There were connection issues with him and Josh Allen all year long. Remember, right before the season started, it was practice before the preseason games. They had that weird thing going on where Sean McDermott said, well, Stephon Diggs is not reported yet. He's not in the building. And then Diggs' agent came out and he was like, yeah, I did. I'm in the building. I just haven't been coming to practice. Just nobody seems like they're on the same page with Stephon Diggs. I think his time could be limited in Buffalo. You got to find somebody to replace him because Gabriel Davis is still very inconsistent. Shakir had solid games, but he was kind of flash, right? He was kind of boom or bust. Now you grabbed Dalton Kincaid in the draft. I think by far and away the best tight end in last year's draft. I really wanted my Dallas Cowboys to get him. I think they would have. The Bills jumped right ahead of him to take Dalton Kincaid. You pair him with Dawson Knox. So you have a nice tight end core there. It's just the outside that I struggle with. Not only is Diggs seem unhappy, he's a few years older. I think whether it's in the draft or free agency, you got to bring in some pass catchers to help out Josh Allen. Number 4, I'm going Philadelphia Eagles. I actually could have placed them higher on this list. The only reason I didn't is because their roster's so talented. But there is a ton of question marks for this team, and for me, it starts at the top with Nick Sirianni. He had a really good year 2 years ago, so did Jalen Hurts. Both of them took a significant step back. I think it's a prove-it year for not only Sirianni, but Jalen Hurts. I mean, this team had one of the most insane collapses that we've seen. They started the year 11-1. You lose 6 of your last 7 games, including a round 1 playoff game, and a Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that was not nearly as talented as you, but they were peaking at the right time, and you were trending in the wrong direction. Again, I think people are going to start questioning Jalen Hurts, especially if he gets off to a bad start. He had 14 interceptions a year ago. He had single digits the year before that. Now, I think he was playing hurt a lot of times, and I think that's Nick Sirianni's fault for keep trotting him out there. You had Marcus Mariota as your backup, one of the best backups in the league, and you had kind of an easy schedule. They should have set Jalen Hurts for a couple weeks, let him get fully healthy. They didn't do it. He didn't respond well, playing with injury. There's a lot of issues. Also, they need to improve their defense. It was one of the worst defenses in the NFL the last half of the year, and Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers torched them in the playoffs. And that was an offense that coming into the playoffs was struggling. Baker was reeling a little bit. Their defense had kept them in most of the games. Now, they hired a new defensive coordinator. They have to add some talent in free agency as well. Also, here's a big one. You got to replace your starting center and a dang good one in Jason Kelce. It's so hard to find a good center in this league. That's why when you see a team that has a good center, they hold on to him. I think Eric McCoy is going to be with the New Orleans Saints for a long time. I think Creed Humphrey is going to be a Kansas City Chief maybe for the entirety of his career. When you find a good center, it's so hard to get another one that has that consistency and that camaraderie with the rest of the offensive line. They got to replace a guy who was a staple on that team for over a decade. Number 3 for me is the Chicago Bears. You have the opportunity to change the direction of your franchise. You have multiple first-round picks, and you obviously have a big decision to make regarding the quarterback position. You decided to bring back Matt Eberflus, which was a controversial decision to say the least. Are you going to give him a full year? If things start going bad, are you just going to cut ties with him after 3 or 4 games? Because in all likelihood, you're going to have a new quarterback. By all accounts, they're still probably going to move on from Justin Fields. I would probably move on from Justin Fields. We'll get into that a little bit later on Take It or Leave It, whether or not I think that's the correct decision to draft Caleb Williams, because I have major question marks about Caleb Williams. We'll get into that a little bit later, but you've put Matt Eberflus in a position to succeed with all these draft picks. You got to make the most of it. You have to hit on these draft picks, and most importantly, you have to make the correct decision at quarterback. Number 2 for me, which if we'd have said this 5 years ago, I'd have said no way, it's the New England Patriots. It might actually be a positive for the Patriots that they're picking 3rd overall, because if you feel equally good about Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels, then the decision's made for you at number 3, right? Because you got to assume a quarterback's going to 1 and 2. Maybe they try to make a move to go up to number 2, but I think they're in a good spot where they are at 3. The post-Brady era has been awful. It's been shaky to say the least. You thought you had your guy a couple years ago in Mac Jones. He comes in, he's, solid as a rookie. He leads you to the playoffs. Since then, it has been a dramatic downturn. Also, not only do you need a quarterback, you desperately need wide receiver help. And you've needed that even before Brady left. I mean, you need wide receivers in a bad way. Also, the biggest news of the offseason for the Patriots, you parted ways with Bill Belichick. You made, in my opinion, what was a questionable hire in Gerard Mayo. Not that I don't think Mayo's a good coach. He's just never been a head coach before, and it's fine if you've never been a head coach. You have a lot of talent on that roster. I think this is going to be a tough ask for Gerard Mayo because this might be one of the least talented rosters in the entire NFL. So you got to put Gerard Mayo in position to succeed. You got to make sure you have the right guy at quarterback, and you need a lot of help at the wide receiver position as well. Let's see what they do in the draft and free agency if they make something happen. You don't have to draft a quarterback. I mean, there's a lot of people who are saying that they are interested in Baker Mayfield. Now, everything Baker said is that he wants to stay in Tampa, but that's certainly an option for you. If you're like, hey, I don't feel great about any of these guys, I'm going to have to bring them in as a starter, maybe bring in a Baker Mayfield. You could still draft the quarterback at top 3, have him sit for a year. We've seen a lot of success with that in NFL history. Now, it hadn't happened a lot in recent history, but, I mean, the precedent has been set, and it's a good one. And number 1 for me is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think this is the first time in his coaching career that Mike Tomlin is truly on the hot seat. He's not necessarily doing bad. I mean, he went 9-8 this year, but they're just kind of stale in Pittsburgh, right? You have to find out who your quarterback is. Because Kenny Pickett showed promise as a rookie, a lot like Mac Jones did. Last year, he took a step back, and, you know, when he went down with injury and you turned things over to Mason Rudolph was actually significantly better than Kenny Pickett. So who's going to be your starter coming in? Also, the offensive line needs serious help. Whether it's Najee Harris or Jalen Warren, neither of them can find any room to run. And you're getting Najee Harris beat up. I think Najee Harris still has talent. I think he could still be a good running back in the NFL, but not behind that offensive line. And how is a young quarterback supposed to succeed in that system as well? Now, you got rid of Matt Canada. There's a plus for you because he wasn't very good. But you hired Arthur Smith as offensive coordinator. Now, you know, Arthur Smith had some solid years with the Tennessee Titans as offensive coordinator, and some people are better as coordinators than they are as head coaches. But Arthur Smith was a bad play caller in Atlanta, and he did not utilize his weapons. I mean, we've talked about the lack of usage for Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson. Now, maybe he had a little bit too much on his plate as a head coach, was trying to, you know, dip his toes in every single thing he could instead of just focusing on offense. He'll have a chance to do that, so well, I think there's potential there. It was a questionable hire, to say the least. And I mentioned that I think Mike Tomlin's on the hot seat. You got to get this hire right, because if you bring in Arthur Smith, who the last time everybody saw him wasn't very good, I think that calls into question your ability as a leader. For a team that needs to revamp the offense, you have a lot to prove that you made the right hire. All right, that was a little fun segment of a list, right? It's a list season, kind of an in-depth breakdown of the top 5 teams that I think need a win in a big way this offseason. We're going to take our final time out of the show. We're going to come back like we do every single day with a little take it or leave it here on the Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio video security solutions. If you're looking for something in the audio world, whether it's wiring your house for sound, making sure you've got voice automation in your home so that you can say, hey, I want to watch a movie, and the blinds come down and the TV comes on and the lights dim, he can handle that as well. If you've got your home entertainment situation needs some improvement on the video side, he can help you with that. And they also do security over there at Audio Video Security Solutions. I invite you to check out their Instagram. It's AVSS_BR, AVSS_BR. You can see some of the awesome work that they do at Audio Video Security Solutions. This is Mitchell Fisher's phone number. You get the owner of the company. You call this number, 225-439-7920. It's in the 225 area code, 439-7920. It's our friends at Audio Video Security Solutions.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Elevate brand visibility, ignite customer engagement with the power of radio and digital advertising combined. Guarantee Digital Media brings the two together as a trusted media partner in Louisiana for nearly a century. Claim your free digital audit at guaranteemedia.com.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood Subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night.
On Tuesdays, OTB. We'll preview the week that will be for LSU baseball, plus your latest football news. We got Coach Kim Mulkey stopping by. Nick Underhill's going to break down the black and gold, and a brand new OTB mailbag. Off the bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
Discover the largest showcase of outdoor gear in Louisiana, featuring everything from fishing and hunting equipment to ATVs, boats, and more at the Louisiana Outdoor Expo, March 15th to the 17th at the Lamar Dixon Expo Center. Register for your chance to win tickets today at 1045ESPN.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Welcome back into the final segment on this Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Taylor Sharp hanging out with you here in place of Hunt Palmer, who will be back tomorrow. Look, we're a little short on time, so let's dive right into it. Jacob Beck, kick us off with a little take it or leave it.
All right, first one here. Storming the field/court should be banned in college sports. Take it or leave it.
Man, you're starting us off with a tough one here today. It's kind of hard to say because, does something need to be done about it? Yes. Can anything be done about it? I don't think so. You're never going to have enough police or security to corral everybody. I mean, if thousands of people want to get on the court or the field, they're going to get on the court or the field. I mean, I personally think that storming the court is stupid. I think everybody does it so they can pick up their phone, go Instagram, Snapchat Live, and show everybody how cool they are. I mean, you obviously saw Kyle Filipowski get injured. I'm of the opinion that Kyle Filipowski and Caitlin Clark both initiated that contact. You can go back, watch the tape, come to your own opinion. But, I mean, should it be? Maybe. I don't think it will be because I don't think there's anything you can do about it. So I guess leave it.
All right, the Chicago Bears have the first overall pick and numerous first-round picks in this year's draft. The Bears are in the best position to make a move in the draft. Take it or leave it.
Take it. You know, if they don't feel good about Caleb Williams, and which I don't feel good about Caleb Williams, and they also don't feel good about Justin Fields, maybe they could keep Justin Fields for a year, see what happens, trade, get even more first-round picks. I think the Bears could be very active. Now, do I think they will be? No, but they certainly can, so I'll take it.
All right, the Bengals have franchise tagged T. Higgins. This was the correct move. Take it or leave it.
I'm going to take it. The Bengals have a lot of young talent. The problem with having a lot of young talent is you got to pay them all around the same time. Look, franchise tagging him gives you a chance to negotiate, and if you don't reach an agreement by the July 15th deadline, you still have him for one more year to see if you can't make a run at this thing one more time as long as Burrow's fully healthy. I think it's a win-win for both sides. I think it was a good decision. I'll take it. All right, last one.
All right, Russell Wilson says regardless of where he plays, his goal is to get 2 Super Bowls in the next 2 seasons. Take it or leave it.
I'm going to leave that one. I think Russell Wilson's Super Bowl winning and competing days are behind him. I always kind of thought Wilson was a little overrated. Look, people loved him because he had a lot of success early on behind a really good defense and Marshawn Lynch, who was the best running back in the NFL. Since that happened, Russell Wilson has a total of 2 playoff wins since that great defense disbanded. I'm going to leave that one really, really hard. Okay, that's going to do it for Take It or Leave It, and that's going to do it for the Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. To give you a little bit of a recap, we kicked things off today with LSU baseball. We recapped the weekend that was. Then Bill Bender joined us to talk a little bracketology. LSU put a damper on things on Saturday. What are their chances getting in the tournament? Spoiler alert, very slim. Then we broke down the SEC basketball weekend as a whole. Talked a little Eric Bieniemy as a college offensive coordinator. Then we were wall-to-wall football in the second hour. We broke down the biggest question marks for LSU heading into spring practice. Matthew Paris joined us to talk Saints and his trip to Indianapolis for the NFL Combine. What can the black and gold do? I just broke down a minute ago the top 5 teams that need a win in the offseason. And then, of course, wrapping it up with Take It or Leave It. Look, I want to thank Hunt Palmer for letting me step in and do this. I had a lot of fun with you guys. Hope you had fun as well. Tune in 3 to 6 for Matt Musso, filling in for Matt Moscona today on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.